Good afternoon and happy Monday. Start of a new week, and it is scorching hot where I'm at. We're in the hundreds, but this is my type of weather. Originally from San Diego, so I'm all for the heat. I've been waiting for it, so I'm super excited. If you ask other people that are from here, they're hating it. So yeah, but I promised I was going to come on and be more consistent, and I am following through. I'm coming full steam ahead, all gas, no brakes. So today what I want to talk about is something that many of us deal with. And I specifically am speaking to working professional moms because that's what I am. I'm a working professional mom. But emotional burnout. We don't always talk about emotional burnout. And it's sort of, especially for working moms, we're expected to just that's not a thing for us. We are super woman. We can do it all, and we try to do it all. And so, I have obviously a soft spot for working professional moms who are juggling work, school, kids, being a wife, and any other roles that they have. So we're going to be talking about 5 different things to deal with emotional burnout. What does that look like? What can we do? How do we manage it? And so the first thing I want to talk about is, what does emotional burnout look like for a high functioning mom? Because one thing that is a misconception is that emotional burnout people, you can notice it. Like, it's something that it's obvious, they're not functioning, they're at home, they're not doing housework, they're not taking care of their kids. And that's just not the reality. For a high functioning, it could be people in general, but I'm going to keep saying moms because that's what I am. But high functioning moms, we can be so burnt out and still keep pushing. Because we understand that there's little people a lot of times that are depending on us, there's spouses depending on us, there's other people depending on us, and so we just keep pushing through. So for me, that's what it's been like sort of for me for the last 3 years. I've pretty much been on an emotional burnout roller coaster. And for me, what that looked like was sort of like what I said on Friday, is I was just going through the motions. I woke up at 4 a.m, drove an hour to work, worked 8 hours, drove an hour home. And some days I was in class for 4 hours. Other days I had clients. And I wasn't keeping up as much with the household stuff. Luckily, my husband was doing that. But I wasn't spending a lot of time with my kids. But I just, by the time I was done with clients, by the time I was done with class, I was just done. I was exhausted, and I would go to bed early, or I just would turn my brain off because I'm like, my brain, I cannot function anymore. And that's, pretty much what it was for the last 3 years. I was still going to work, still going to school. I just graduated with a 3.9 GPA. So obviously, I was still doing the stuff that was required of me, but it was taking all of me. And so what does that look like for you? Have you really sat down and think, am I emotionally burnt out? And that could look like, do you notice you're short-tempered? Do you notice like your emotions are stunted? Like, you're just like whatever. Yeah. Just, you feel like you're not connected to family. You're not connected to your spouse. You're not connected to really anything. Surviving looks a lot like emotional burnout. And so a lot of the things you'll hear me talk about today is very similar because it's all connected. And sometimes we forget that if we don't take care of ourselves and we are not tapping into what is going on with us, then it's going to affect all areas of our life. And sometimes it's very subtle ways, and sometimes it just builds and builds and builds. And so, tell me, like, do you feel emotionally burnt out? Do you feel like you're functioning as well as you could be? And if not, what are some of the areas that you feel like you need to improve on? Or what are some of the things that you're struggling with? Because as moms, a lot of times we struggle in silence. We feel like we cannot ask for help. We feel like, and again, this is not just geared towards moms. This could be a parent, it could be anybody. But, do you feel like you can't ask for help? Do you feel like that shows weakness? Like, what is it that's keeping you from asking for help, for asking for a break, for asking for advice, whatever it is? Like, what is keeping you from getting to that next level? And the next thing I want to talk about is the myth of doing it all. Again, focus towards working moms, but we've been told, at least, for me, as a woman, we're expected to be a full-time mom. We're expected to keep up with household things, whether that be dishes, cooking, laundry, and nowadays, just because of the price of everything, we also have to have a job. And because this is what we've been told, this is what we do. And a lot of times we just do it without saying, hey, wait a minute, do I have the capacity to do all of these things? And so we wake up, we take care of the kids, we take kids to school, we take kids to activities, we go to work, we come home, we do dinner, we do laundry. Again, some of us are lucky because we have significant others that can help us. But there are others who are not so lucky and are true single parents and have to do it all by yourself. And so that, that's another thing with today's society is we do have a lot of single parent households, and it's very, very difficult. And we don't think about how hard it is that, hey, I don't have anybody else that I can depend on. And a lot of people don't have family nearby, or they don't have family that is involved in their life, or they don't really have close friends. And if they have close friends, they're not really in the same area of life as kids, and they're not tied down, a lot of different things, but you find yourself doing it all. And if you have a significant other, you don't have to do it all. But sometimes we still try to do it all because we feel like that's what we are supposed to do. And so, thinking of doing it all, what I want to ask is, when was the last time you asked yourself what you needed without actually feeling guilty? Because that's another thing I feel like as parents and moms, we feel guilty for asking for help. We feel guilty for asking for a break. Can I just have 10 minutes for myself? We feel guilty. I know for me as a mom, I'm getting a little bit better at it. But I'm always like, man, I could be spending time with my kids. I could be doing this. I could be doing that, as opposed to taking care of myself or giving myself the mental break that I need. Or, hey, four hands are better than two for this, particular situation. So ask yourself, when was the last time you asked for help without feeling guilty? And that's something that I think a lot of us struggle with, is the guilt, especially moms. We just, the maternal instincts for many of us is just so great that it causes us to just feel guilty anytime our life is not focused around our kids. At least it is for me. Like I said, I'm getting better. I have been, up until recently, one of those parents who I feel like my whole life should be consumed with my kids. Because in my mind, they're little for such a short period of time, and I don't want to miss anything, and I don't want anything to be affecting them. And so that's the mentality that I've had, and I'm working on trying to get out of that and understand that, hey, they also have to have room to grow and to learn, and they can't do that if I'm constantly hovering or constantly involved in every single aspect of their life, especially my older ones, my teens. So next, I want to go to looking at physical signs of burnout. Some are, a lot are very obvious. You're tired. You are physically tired. Like, you find yourself taking more frequent naps. You find yourself taking naps. If you're not a napper naturally, like me, I'm not a natural napper. I either sleep or I'm up. Like, naps to me just have never really made sense, because I'm like, my body it doesn't really get the rest it needs. But there are some people that do great with naps. But they notice they're having more naps. You notice that you have a very short temper, very short fuse with your kids, with your coworkers. You just find things very irritating that normally aren't irritating for you. And that was sort of me, especially towards the end of my graduate degree, is because I knew I was at the finish line and I'm like, I cannot mess up. And so I was so consumed with papers and assignments and making sure I got all my clinical hours with my clients. That was the hardest thing, because with my program, I had to have 700 hours, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're working full time and you have other obligations, it's a lot. And still going to school full time, it's a lot. So I found myself very short fused. I'm like, anytime, even just saying my name, mom, like I was just like, what? Like I'm like just always amped up. Another sign is that you can't remember the last time you were happy or excited about anything. Like I said a little bit earlier, it's like being numb. Your emotions are stunted. There is nothing. It's just you're going through the motions. And so sometimes when we're going through the motions, we fail to remember the last time that we actually had joy. We actually were happy. We actually were excited. And it's funny because someone today, a coworker today, he was like, "You seem extra happy today." I'm like, I'm I'm just into my thriving season. And so, when you start to remember the joy you have in life, other people start to notice. And other people start to notice when you no longer have the joy, or you no longer have that glow, that smile, that laugh. People notice. They may not say anything, but trust and believe that they notice. And so if you're noticing physical signs of burnout, just remember that don't look down on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't feel like that means that you're lazy or broken. Just remember that your body and your brain are trying to cope with everything that you have going on. And sometimes you might feel like you don't have enough going on to be emotionally burnt out. And I think that's also a myth that people have, is that, hey, I'm not really doing much of anything, so how can I be emotionally burnt out? There could be a lot of things. It could just be stress, worried about finances. It could be upcoming tests. It could be passing a program. It could be, one of your kids is having difficulties in school or at home, and, nothing else is different. You're just having extra things in other places of your life. And so don't feel less than because you're in an emotional burnout right now. The next thing I want to talk about is the guilt. Sorry, I'm looking out the window. The guilt that keeps burnout going. Again, just like I just talked about, guilt is a thing many parents especially deal with, or people that have others that depend on them. If we are emotionally burnt out, we feel like we're failing, and we feel guilty for being emotionally burnt out. We feel guilty for not being 100%. We feel guilty for not doing what we feel like we should be doing every day. One of the things for me is I haven't been cooking like I was before, meal prepping like I was before. And, my kids notice. They're like, "Hey, we don't eat at home." And I'm like, I don't have the patience. I don't have the time. And there was just a lot of things going on. And so there was guilt there with, not keeping up with the things that I normally keep up with. We feel guilty when we do finally stop and take a break. When we do finally, take a nap. When we finally do just turn our brain off and not think of work, not think of school, not think of our obligations, but truly just be. And that could look like sitting outside on your patio, listening to the birds, listening to the wind. That could be taking a nap. That could be reading a book. That could be watching your favorite TV show. It could just be anything, but we feel guilty because it's not an if, because it will be a when we finally do stop and take that rest. We feel guilty for asking for help. We feel guilty this is a big one. We feel guilty for saying no. So many of us are yes, 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 and we don't know how or when to say no. And I think that is one of the biggest things that causes major burnout, is for the people that don't know how to say no. And that's been me up until recently, but I've started creating boundaries, because I realized that if I do not create boundaries, and that could be with my clients, that could be with even me, like giving a boundary of, I need my me time. I need 10 minutes a day, or whatever it looks like for me. I've learned to create the boundaries. But for the longest time, no was just not part of my vocabulary, because I feel like, oh, I could squeeze it in. I could do it. No problem. I could do it. Until finally someone, my coach, one of my coaches was like, you can't keep doing it all. You don't have the time. And if you keep squeezing stuff into your schedule and trying to do it all, then nothing is going to work, and it is all going to fall apart. And that's when I was like, you know what? Nope, I can't. So I took one major thing off my plate, which was my business, really working on and in my business. That was something I could put on hold. Everything else I couldn't. And it helped. It really did help a lot, because I was struggling to try to maintain this ridiculous schedule of, working on and in my business, working full-time 9 to 5, school full-time, clients full. It just wasn't working. I was trying, it just wasn't working. And so I had to learn to say no. And the last thing I want to talk about is why rest is productive and should not be considered a luxury. So let's do an imagery. Imagine a car is running and you never ever change the oil. I've heard of some people doing this. They just keep, as a matter of fact, one of our family vehicle, the one that fits all of us, we did not know this, but the person before us did not take care of the car. And when I say did not take care of the car, it had, 40 or 50,000 miles on it. In less than a year, we had to get a new engine, because they told us the oil changed. There was never an oil change. There was, we had oil because we put oil in it, but they had never had an oil change, and we, and tune up and other stuff going on. So, it was not taken care of. So what happens to a car when you consistently run it and don't take care of the maintenance, change the oil, a tune up? Like, what happens to the car? And so now imagine you are that car. You are constantly running. You are constantly on the go. You're not taking those rests. You're not taking those breaks. You're not having self-care. You're not asking for help. You're just not taking care of you. If you are the car and you don't ever stop to have maintenance on the car, what is going to happen to you? Pretty sure the same thing that happened to our truck, and the engine we had to replace. But you have to remember, unlike a car, it's not so easy to replace certain things within us that break. Whether that be, let me think, what could break? If you don't take care of yourself, okay, just imagine that you start gaining a lot of weight, and then now you're not as mobile. It's not so easy to lose the weight. Trust me, I'm in the phase of life where I have to be extra careful, but we are not replaceable. Unlike cars that we can just go buy another one, we can have a new engine put in. We can't make a new us. We can't do a new us. And so we have to look at ourselves as, I don't want to say a car, but just an illustration that unlike cars, we're not replaceable. We can't get a new us. And so if a car that is an inanimate object that doesn't breathe requires maintenance, what do you think would require more maintenance? Something that is living, breathing, that requires vitamins, nutrients, that requires oxygen, carbon dioxide, food. I know I said nutrients, but food, vitamin D, that require all these different things for us just to function at optimal level. What do you think happens to us if we don't take care of ourselves? And so this is just a reminder that rest is a requirement. It is not a luxury. And I thought rest was a luxury. I thought wasn't going to rest until my kids were out of the house and I was an empty nester. But it's just not. Rest is a part of productivity. And it's crazy to think, hey, if I'm not resting, I'm not being very productive. But if you really sit down and think about the times you've been overtired, how productive have you been? As opposed to times when you take that rest and you take that 10 minutes or you take that 30 minutes or whatever it looks like for you, when you take that time, how much more productive are you? And so lastly, as a bonus thing, what I want to do is to leave you with 3 practical steps that can help you manage burnout. They're very easy. They are very simple, but sometimes difficult to do. The very first one, which I said is to me, one of the biggest things that is the reason for burnout: say no. And start off small. Say no to one thing a week that drains you. And you don't have to explain it. It could be working out sometimes is an escape. So it could be someone, every week you are helping someone do something. You can say no. Don't explain it, just no. So whatever is draining you that week, or you know is going to drain you, say no. Nope. Nope. Seems simple, but I promise you it's not. The second one goes into also what I said previously, is schedule 10 minutes a day for deep breathing, or therapists, we call it mindfulness exercises, journaling, or nothing. Like I think I said this last week, sometimes we don't have any time to just sit in silence. That could be because you have roommates, that could be because you have kids, a spouse, pets, whatever. Take 10 minutes. And if that, like for me, that's like when I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, nobody else is awake. It's been a little difficult waking up at 4 o'clock lately, but go downstairs, sit on your couch, and if you want, close your eyes and just listen to the silence. Now for me, silence is a little deafening, so I wouldn't necessarily sit in complete silence. But some people, silence is what they need. So 10 minutes a day, mindfulness exercises, journaling, whatever it is that would help you, 10 minutes a day. And the third thing that can help you is delegating something small. Like I said, it's like asking for help. For me, if you have kids, it's like, hey, I need you to do the dishes this week. Another kid, it could be, hey, can you vacuum? It could be a friend. You could say, hey, can you come over and mow the grass? Or you pay someone in the neighborhood, a kid in the neighborhood, $10. Hey, can you mow my grass? Whatever it is, start delegating. And delegating seems to be another very difficult thing for people to do, especially those that have control issues or feel like they could do it better, which you probably can. But if we keep trying to do it all, we are going to burn out and not be productive. So learn to delegate small tasks. Again, whatever that looks like, it's different for everybody. So those are the 3 things that I want you to work on this week, is saying no to one thing that's draining you this week. Take 10 minutes a day, whether that be mindfulness techniques, stretching, could be stretching, journaling, sitting in silence, whatever you want to do for that 10 minutes, and then delegating small tasks, and learning to not do it all. We are not superwoman. We are not superhuman. We are human. We require rest. We require self-care, and we require help. We all need help. I don't care who you are. We all need a hand, whether that be personally, professionally, whatever. We all need a hand in our lives. So if you've been showing up overwhelmed, burnt out, that means that you are strong. Look at your emotional burnout and remind yourself, I am strong because I am still pushing through. But just imagine who you could be if you were thriving, instead of, like I said last week, just surviving. And just surviving leads to emotional burnout, physical burnout, and burnout as a whole. And we don't need to be there. We need to tap into our community. Some of us don't have a community. Create a community. Sometimes we stumble into communities. That's what happened to me. I stumbled into a community. I didn't stumble into community. I stumbled into the person who created the community. And she introduced me to the community. And it's just been opening up doors ever since. But don't try to do it alone. Don't be superwoman. Don't be superhuman. Ask for help. Don't look at emotional burnout as a weakness, because it's not. If you're continuing to push through, remind yourself, I am strong. And so what I want you all to do in the comments is drop a heart if any of this resonated with you. Comment if you've experienced emotional burnout, what that looked like for you. And if you have any other quick strategies that others could use to help their emotional burnout, drop them in the comments. Like I said last week, we need to start having these conversations, be open, be okay, be transparent. I'm a very open book. Sometimes my husband especially and other people say I'm too much of an open book. But I'm an open book. And I will admit to you guys where, I fall short, and I have no problems doing that. But build you a community. And if you are a professional working mom, build you a community of other professional working moms, because we can tap in. We can feel like, hey, someone's understanding me, understanding where I'm coming from. We might not understand exactly what you're going through, but I promise that we can relate and stop pretending and get ready to heal, grow, and thrive, because I'm telling you, this is thriving season, and I am claiming it. And if you tap in to my page and you stay connected, I promise you it's going to motivate you to want to keep going. Again, if you're not already following me, make sure you follow my page, because I will be doing this probably at least 3 times a week. Friend request me, but make sure you tap in. I hope you guys enjoy this amazingly fabulous Monday. I'm so excited. It's sunny and hot. I know other people are not, but remember, emotional burnout is not weakness. You are strong, and ask for help, because it is there. I promise you. Have a great day.